Friday, the December 18th, and another weekly shout out. I thought I'd start off this week with what happened this week at the City Council. We had three significant items move forward. One was the update to noticing for development projects, and community development brought forward some new standards, essentially enlarging the areas in which we notice for some types of development projects, and then expanding the time from 5 to 7 days for certain types, and then adding certain categories. Great work by CDD to bring that item forward. That was followed up by a lot of speakers interested in marijuana. And we had a lot of speakers who, throughout the county, the County Board of Supervisors had a hearing earlier that day. The council essentially reaffirmed current policy, which was we don't allow brick and mortar dispensaries, and we don't allow mobile dispensaries, and so business licenses should continue not to be issued. The council's policies relative to personal cultivation is that it can happen as long as it doesn't become a nuisance, and then we don't allow for commercial cultivation. This is all as a result of some state legislation that the governor signed that essentially requires us to take a look at whether or not we want to allow these types of things, and for right now the council has decided to move forward with its current policy. We also heard a report on our water resources, and we heard that we have, based upon our current reservoirs, and if we have continued abnormal rain patterns, we have 3.5 years of supply left. Utilities is really monitoring this year's weather patterns and climate data, and we'll see if the predictions hold true with Godzilla, and we'll see if we have the rain events that refill and replenish the reservoirs. Speaking about Godzilla and El Nino, there has been a lot of work going on across departments relative to storm readiness, and there's been a few things of note. GIS team has been working a lot on doing some maps and mapping out flood response zones and patrol location maps. And Freddie and Mary have been working a lot on making sure that we know where the areas that we've cleaned, what are potential problem points, where are 100-year and 500-year floodplains, and where are private creeks and drainage facilities, and have we reached out to those property owners. A lot of great work that's been happening. David has been putting together some vellum maps that'll be printed on 18 by 24 inch paper. They're waterproof. They can be out in the field, so that if we have rainy events and we're trying to figure out what's happening within our drainage system, that we can do that comprehensively. Beyond that, Chief Olson is working on a video piece that'll go out that talks about all the great stuff that the city's been doing. I think that there's been organizational focus across the board on getting ready for the potential El Nino event. And so one of the areas that I would ask you to focus on is, I know that recently we reminded folks that we had our NIMS training, our National Incident Management System training. Michelle Bullough is keeping track of the folks that have gone online and taken that coursework. And I would just hope that after the first of the year that we have everyone going online. It's a simple course. And then beyond that, attending to what we talked about at staff meetings a couple weeks ago, which is making sure that you have the appropriate food and water supplies at home, so when you are called in as an emergency service worker, that you're prepared and your family's prepared to take care of themselves for 3 days. A few just quick shout outs. We had some major accomplishments this week in IT. The IT team worked late into the night on Monday and successfully took down the entire city network to patch 2 master core switches, and then brought the network up. They also resolved some storage issues, and the team didn't get home until about 5 a.m., though I did see some of them here bright and early nonetheless. I don't know if they went home and slept at all. The project involved the turning off 144 servers, applications, phones, public safeties, MDCs, transit. It was a pretty coordinated effort, and big kudos to Steve and the entire team for pulling that off. It was pretty seamless, I'm sure, from most users' side, and certainly appreciate the GIS and IT team for doing all that. Also want to talk about the GIS and team did some work trying to map out some of the arson fires that are happening. You may have seen in Red reports about we have had a bunch of fires that have been set in the creek, and GIS has been using their skills to aid in the assistance in finding out what's going on. And then we've also been creating maps for the EOC personnel to use beyond just out in the field, but should we have a weather event, how we're going to respond, with respect to each one of our departments. Getting back to what's going on in the future after the first of the year, what the council will be considering is on the 5th, we actually have somewhat of a light of agenda. We've got some changes to the ordinance related to ordinance for vehicles and traffic. We have our annual traffic safety report, which is a great report that really targets areas where we have known traffic safety problems, and we have a really strategic focus on changing the physical environment and the improvements within the right-of-way to make sure that we can address any sort of problem areas. We have a report from the fire department on our progress in removing local natural hazards, and that report happens annually to the city council. And then on the 19th, we've got a report from CDD on the property assessed clean energy. This is so that property owners can take advantage of private funding and private lending to put solar panels, make weatherization improvements, do other changes to essentially improve the efficiency of their structures. And then we have a recommendation I guess it's a study session from the city clerk's office about the Democracy Voucher Program, which is a program to essentially provide some funding for city council elections. Then we move on to February 2nd, in which I think a lot of the work that's been going on in the office, you probably have heard about this, is we'll be presenting the single audit and for the transit, and along with the comprehensive annual financial report on February 2nd. At that same meeting, we'll be talking about the Ledge platform and the public art master plan, and then and then an award for biosolids management. After that, on the 16th, another big night for finance and IT. We present the mid-year budget review and progress on our major city goals. So a lot of the work we've been focusing on the last couple months will be coming to the city council. What's going on the GFOA side? I think I reported last week in the weekly shout out that we have seen, we expect to see the draft report sometime in the middle of January. We'll circulate the draft recommendations to the entire department, and then Greg is working on scheduling time for GFOA to come out and present that report sometime during the 4th week of that month. Certainly one of the big pieces of feedback that we got early on before we embarked on this process was that all of the department wanted to review the recommendations before they were finalized and have an opportunity for input and understanding so that we had some recognition and acknowledgement of the steps ahead. On the other side of the equation, we had a staff meeting this week up at the Water Resources Facility, or the water treatment plant. Frank up there did a fantastic job of welcoming and engaging the entire finance and IT team that could get away that morning for the staff meeting. Learned a lot about the water treatment plant, in particular really took in all of the amazing views and was really exposed to some really dynamic and professional people in the utilities department that are committed to the city's safety and the water that they provide to our community. Interesting to see the process, learn about that. Unfortunately, I had to step out, and Greg stepped in and facilitated a team building exercise in which I understand there was really good participation, and I appreciate those folks that were involved and engaged in that effort as we continue to learn more about each other and trust each other in a way that we can build upon our team and prepare ourselves for a lot of conversations and hard work ahead as we think about adjusting our business practices and processes. Continuing to see just a tremendous amount of teamwork and cooperation on a lot of different aspects of projects that we're working on. We've made some progress on utility billing in talking to Jennifer and the rest of the team. And we've also sent out a recent batch of letters to the remaining folks that have not paid their annual business license fees. So for all of you that'll be in the office next week, looking forward to kind of wrapping things up and focusing on our time, and hopefully we'll have less disruptions to complete some last year-end projects. And then after the first of the year, we'll again pick things up, and you can expect probably the middle of January onward to be a big organizational focus on what GFOA has for us in terms of their recommendations. Thanks to everyone for the awesome amount of work, and appreciate all the support, and I'll catch you all on Monday. Have a great weekend.